Okay, well, hey, everybody, I would like to call to order the Village of Lansing Planning Board meeting for Monday, February 13th, 2023 at 7:02 PM. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for January 31st, 2023. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to add to them? I know there was plenty of comments on them, so that was good. Thank you again for everybody reading them and commenting on them.
The only changes I made were with Natalie and
That's
Chad.
it, yeah.
An S.
I wasn't that much to it.
Yes.
It was an S, yes.
When I saw that, I said, I think I'm off duty here.
Pretty accurate. Okay, I'll entertain.
For a living.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by
Second.
Pat, second by Lisa, all in favor?
I,
Next item on the agenda is the public comment period, so this is a time for anybody from the public to make a comment for something that isn't already on the agenda tonight. Carla?
Hi, I'm here as an observer for the community party.
Hey, Carla.
welcome back, Carla.
Okay, thank you. Good to be back.
Okay. Nothing else? I'll entertain a motion to close the public comment period.
So moved.
Motion by Lisa,
Second.
second by Lorraine. She just beat you, Jim. There's that delay. All in favor? Aye.
Hey,
Okay, and then, so it is a light agenda this evening, but in lieu of canceling the meeting, we thought it would be really good to actually, and, you know, giving people time to read over this in private, although Lorraine did, thank you for doing that Saturday morning, that was nice that you read over it. But for us all to get together and actually spend some time, is especially, you know, kickoff and not having a ton of stuff on the agenda, so we can actually focus on this. I don't know who made the comment, but whoever it was is right. It's very rare that we have the ability to focus on one thing on any given night, so thank you, Mike. But with that, everybody has, I had sent out those documents a couple weeks ago. They're actually also printed off in front of you, so there is the blue cover one that is the model solar energy law, and this is just the guidance document from the United States, from New York State, that has, you know, a model mock law in it, but it also has a bunch of kind of guidance sections in it about why they made certain decisions. There's one where the first page has the green markings on it, and that is kind of a working version of it where we've, you know, gone and filled in the things that we knew were, you know, hey, if you're a village, put village here. If you're a, you know, I forget, there's some other things in there, but we put them in there. And then there's also a version that's printed off in front of you, and that is one that Tony and Carolyn worked on, and I forget who else. And
Yes.
Lisa worked on, when this all kind of started a couple years ago. I will also say that when I sent this out, after the last meeting, I sent it to everybody, also sent it to, Peter, because he's gonna be filling in when,
Right.
Natalie is out on maternity leave. And I did also talk to Tony, since the last meeting, and he said that, he would be willing to look over what we have, what we come up with, and things like that, and provide some guidance, so that was good. He probably won't come to the public meetings, but that he is happy to take a look over, especially, you know, like the technical sections as we talk about, oh, well, should we do, you know, maybe what is better, megawatts, nameplate capacity, square footage, things like that. So he did offer to take a look at those things and provide some feedback there, so I thought that was really good. And he wanted me to say hi to everybody, so.
Okay.
But with that, it is pretty informal, you know, there's no way we're getting through all of this in one sitting, by the way. So I think really what I'd like to do is, you know, the model that they gave you is divided up into sections. Some of them I think are pretty straightforward, but there's a lot that, you know, as a village, we have to decide on, you know, what are some things in here that we want to take out? What are some things in here that, oh yeah, we didn't think about that, we should keep? What are some things in here that don't make sense for the village of Lansing because that's not how we do things? Or what are some things that just, you know, aren't in here at all that we want to put in here? I know, for example, like,
Permitting requirement for tier one.
what's that?
What is the permitting requirement that you're proposing for tier one?
I think just a building permit,
A building permit?
building permit.
And there'll be no review by the planning board?
That's if
Okay.
it's roof mounted,
Well,
right?
tier one is roof mounted.
Right.
Yeah, that
I
was.
was gonna say, that's
yeah.
what you mean by tier one,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
I have a question before we go
Hey,
too
Jim.
far.
Yeah,
So I've got a,
No, that's not true, Lisa. Tier one has got three different,
here,
that's the difference in ours and
I was
theirs.
gonna say
oh,
that.
hold on a second, Jim, go ahead, Jim.
so the document that's got green highlighting, orange highlighting, and purple highlighting,
Yep.
what's the key as to what the different highlightings mean.
So the green stuff is really, it was just like a simple, like, if you're a village, put village, if you're a city, put city, if you're a, hamlet, put hamlet, so that's what that was. The orange, the gray ones are ones that we didn't quite know what the answer was. No, but we didn't want to just go and say, oh yeah, well, this is definitely how we should do in the villages, is like me or Lisa or Karen looked at it. Maybe it should be Mike who does a thing, maybe it should be the trustees who are responsible, maybe it should be the planning board, so that's what the gray is, it's kind of unanswered things that have to be answered. And the orange things are areas where we kind of made some first stabs at, maybe what makes sense as a village. So do we want to do nameplate capacity, or do we want to do square footage? Oh, well, square footage seemed to make the most sense, but it was just a first pass at some of those things. And I think, me or Lisa or Carolyn can comment on that. Some of the discussion we had, and I think Tony, when he reviews it, he might have some thoughts on it too.
Like little details like wattage and footage, I just want to clarify the difference between the plan that Tony and Lisa and I developed and this plan is mainly in how much oversight do we want the village to have in different areas? And it should go up from very little to a lot. And the big thing that Tony, Lisa, and I had decided is that we really wanted there to be a building permit only process for the least intrusive solar systems, the purpose of which is to encourage people to go with solar power. And this kind of backs off of the distinctions that we had made. We thought carefully about what we wanted to put into each category. And the definition section and the statement of purpose and all of that is very similar because I also worked off the model law originally, and so you added some things that we just kind of thought, okay, we don't necessarily need that, but that's fine if we want to be more inclusive in definitions. But the main issue, I think, before we decide any nuanced issues like nameplate versus power or anything else, is do we want there to be a super simple tier 1, a more complicated tier 2, and a very complicated tier 3? And if so, what do we want to put in those 3 categories? And if you look at the one that we had originally set forward, it was the rooftops were just building permit, but we did want there to be some review on some of the ground mounted solars, and that's why they were tier 2, and now that's.
I don't think that quite went away.
And that is pretty much what's in the model law, the New York State model law. I want to differentiate between what you guys, what you guys had originally worked on in this. So tier 1, if you look at what they have, it's roof mounted solar, okay. Building integrated solar, that's where you could potentially wedge your solar panel in between 2 pieces of glass or have solar blinds or something like that. So some ground mounted ones that are small, and then, so like, up to, I think we put 500 square feet in there. We can talk about, I know that Lisa took pictures and all kinds of stuff. And then there's on-farm solar energy systems, and if you look at the guidance document, there's a reason that on-farm solar energy systems are kind of classified in that tier, and it has to do with state law.
Sorry, I don't see that. Is that a D somewhere? Mine only goes to C. I have the building, the ground.
So I'm just looking under tier 1, just under tier 1A, yeah. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, on this one that Mike printed off, yeah.
2, 3.
There's roof-mounted solar, building integrated solar, ground-mounted solar up to a certain area, and then on-farm solar energy.
Carolyn with the orange,
Yeah, take a look, yeah, that one right there.
that's the one.
Oh, mine's.
Yeah, that one has that.
Okay.
Because originally, one of the things we tried to simplify it. We said, okay, well, do we really have to have this, like, the solar thing for the farms in there, for example? And if you took a look at some of the guidance documents, yeah, you kind of have to have it in there, because if you take it out, it creates this ambiguity and doesn't provide for that sort of necessity in state law.
Well,
We can take it out, right?
This one doesn't have, what are you talking about?
I think basically, yeah, this one. Do you not have this one? 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Four should be the,
Oh, I thought you were talking about an A, B.
oh, no, just under tier 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, that on-farm thing?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the thing that I think, I'm willing to really work with Carolyn on this. It's not my favorite topic, but I do still have some issues with this, I will say. And I looked at the town, and for example, just like the statement of purpose, I mean, I just think it's a little much. And I prefer the, well, like the one from the town of Ithaca that says basically the purpose to facilitate development, blah, 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 blah. And for example, and to minimize adverse impacts on neighboring properties and protect, and I think
And I don't
that's.
think that's in there,
No.
that statement, I don't think is in the
No,
model
and-
at all, and we've talked about that a lot.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to ground mounted.
And
Like,
that's-
you know, you put it up on a rooftop, okay, I mean,
So what I would say is, if we could just get some general idea how the board feels as a group about certain concepts, big stuff, like that, my goal is to protect adjacent properties, honestly, because we had, and I tried to get a picture from Black Chin, and you couldn't see it, because they have enough shrubs.
yeah, but
that
if you
may-
look at it, if you drive by and see it
But if you think about it.
on
then-
Black Chin,
On Black Chin.
there's a,
Well, actually, it's on East Shore, but their backside is to people on Black Chin, and they're like 25 feet from the property line. So you have this huge property, and now 25 feet is the backside, it looks like the back of a bleachers, right?
Yeah.
And here you are with this pretty view, and I'm thinking, we need buffering. We need the concept of buffering. The backside isn't collecting any energy, so I want some buffering.
well, I think.
And that kind of thing, if it's,
Yeah.
and I'm worried about setbacks. I'm worried about
Yeah.
the impact on others. I'm worried about height. I'm worried about, and I'm also wondering whether it should be called an accessory building, or whether we just go in a different direction. And we've talked about that, I think, with Mike
Yeah.
also. So I would like to understand big things, and then I'm willing to go with whichever way, but. I
And
find
I'm fine with that, and to both your points. So like, I wasn't here when this, or I was, but like, I wasn't involved. Lorraine wasn't here, Pat wasn't here. So
Right.
I think this is a great idea for us to just start fresh and just have us all involved and work through it. I'm fine with that. I don't care if we go through and we say, oh, yeah, like, the decommissioning plan. I think that's a great idea to have a decommissioning plan be some appendix or whatever. That wasn't part of the original thing. I don't care if we go through a section and circle and say, yeah, we want to put one of these in there somehow. But I do, but I have no idea, or I have no idea, I have no problem with just sharing, you know, general thoughts about solar in general in the village, just to kick stuff off. Because that's a lot of where a lot of the questions come in. And to your point, the one on Black Chin too, you know, maybe somebody can go in, and it has to do with setbacks, somebody can go in and put a big solar array there, depending on how, it's all on their property, follows the setbacks according to village law,
And the height.
but maybe that makes a gigantic chunk of my property where I was planning on having a garden. I can't do that now because it's gonna forever be in shade, or all these other things, and I think those are important things, so.
Well, we have to, that's the whole point of zoning, is to protect everyone from, you know, a gas station moving in next door if you live, well, you know, that, I mean, all of that spot zoning stuff. But, so to my mind, that's, you know, the roof map, which is why I took pictures. And actually, in one of these, they even, I don't know which one it is, but one of them even, I sent the one picture, it was really kind of funny. I'm driving around and I just decided I had to go pick up my husband, and I did a cut through, and right across from the Church of the Latter-day Saints, there's this, that's where the one, where it's facing, the backside is on the top of the roof with a low pitch, it's facing south, and as you look at the house, you see the back of it. That's a little different than when it's on the roof itself. And in one of these, and it might be the town of, they don't allow that. And so is that the kind of stuff, do we want to go to that level? I think we need to talk about all of that.
Yep,
Should you show the pictures up on the screen, maybe?
bring them up on the screen.
Do a quick run through on?
And I thought, Mike, you had one, Mike Baker, you had one where you said it was a ground mounted, just as.
Yeah, so if you're coming down, like Credit Farm Road near North Campus, before you come down, there's this one-way bridge there. It's pretty much the road in between. If you can either drive past North Campus, you can drive past the golf course, but they both take you to the one-way bridge. There are, I believe they have since changed the code, but this was before any of that. There are some people who, I remember the house, it's a nice looking house, they had a nice front yard there, there's two houses right next to each other. The one neighbor put a gigantic ground-mounted solar array right in their front lawn. It looks atrocious. I'm sure they don't care, because they clearly don't care about that. They wanted the benefits of solar. They got the benefits of solar, but I knew their neighbor, and their neighbor was not happy with it, and there was a lawsuit over it, and they followed everything they were supposed to follow, and the neighbor now has to stare. They actually left, they moved out, and they sold their house and went somewhere else. But I mean, it is not attractive at
Like the
all.
one on Cherry's Road. What, Cherry Road?
Is there one on Cherry?
Is there a Cherry too?
That was right near the road.
Right, yep. There's a one on Burdick, just down,
Well, the one in Burdick, they just need landscaping in general,
I
but
was gonna, but I think that's good for us to, have examples of like the roof mounted ones near your house. I mean, we, at the one meeting, we mentioned they were there, and I know Lorraine said, I couldn't see them, and be like, well, okay, maybe that's good.
I've driven by there so many times, and I'm like, why am I not seeing it?
No, you really don't.
no, when it's on a peaked roof especially, you don't. And if it would even be on a slow, I don't know, what's the pitch of roofs? You know all the pitch of roofs, 612 or whatever they call all this stuff. If it follows a nice pitch, if it doesn't, even on a flatter roof, if it's facing the street, it's not so bad. But then you've got to worry about glare, but we have anti-glare stuff in here. All of that's been worked out by the state. But I just would like to know kind of what people really are thinking generally for, what do we want for our village?
Let me ask an easy, potentially easier question. What are people's feelings on just roof mounted? I think there's a lot more discussion around ground mounted ones, but what are people's thoughts on, putting solar panels on a roof? It's your house, they only go on the roof.
But
Or maybe it's not just your house, maybe it's a business. Would anyone care if the mall came in and said, we're gonna cover the roof of the mall with solar panels everywhere? Would the board want to review that, or would we just say, hey, good for you, go ahead and put them? Or McGuire, or my house, or here at the village, or something else? I'm just,
4,000 square, in the original concept version, there was a 4,000 square foot, no review, a 4,000 square foot review. So
is that for roof mounted too?
for roof mounted, it would go to, no, for ground mounted, they were all reviewed.
Right, okay, yep.
So if you were putting it on your roof and it was less than 4,000 square foot, and that was just like a number we came up with, that would be like residential primarily, then there's not gonna be any review. And then if it was the mall or McGuire, maybe we do want them to do it, but it goes to the planning board first.
well, I think.
For special permit.
Also, do we care whether it's residential versus a commercial
right.
zone, district?
But we wanted commercial small enough, again, we wanted to encourage it, so if it's small enough, commercial. I mean, this is just a decision we made 2 years ago, it doesn't have to be the decision that anybody reaches today, but we had thought about that, and we thought about that exact thing, do we want them all covered in solar panels? Maybe. Look, show us, but we're not gonna stamp it without looking at it first. That was something that we discussed. So the way we had broken it down was 4,000. Again, we can decide we want to do something similar, like there's a number there, we don't have to decide tonight.
Sure.
But below that number, it's roof mounted, you're tier one, you go to Mike and you pay for your building permit and you're done. Then there's tier two, which is, it's gonna be a special permit process.
But again, the aesthetics of roof mounted, if it is facing you,
So you want to put,
back of the bleachers look, how do you feel about that? Do we care?
so let's see if we thought about that.
Well, I mean, that's the thing with the roof mounted too, like if I want to put roof mounted solar panels on my house, I have one option. It's the pitch of my roof.
Exactly.
Well, we had 24, no, do not exceed more than 24 inches above the height of the roof, that was our only,
And that's
But we didn't care whether it was the back side or the front side.
at the time,
No, we didn't.
we didn't.
No,
Maybe
but, and I'm
Steve does
saying,
care, but at the time, no.
now, when I saw that here and I saw there, it didn't really bother me. I think when it's up high, you just don't kind of notice things. It's really not an issue for me terribly at this point.
I will just, I'm just playing devil's advocate. What if, so you said up high, like if you look at the ones, at Craig's house next door, those are up high. My house, if I put them on my roof, they would be up high. I also have a secondary roof that runs the entire length of it, which is a lot lower. If I stand on my driveway and reach up and jump, I can actually hit the gutter that follows the lower roof line. That would be a lot lower than what you see up on Janivar. So when you said they're up higher, I'm just envisioning a case where somebody has some thing that's not as high as what you would originally consider a traditional roof, and they said, well,
There's an example of that, if you want to look, there's an example on Beckett Way, where there's the two roofs and the lower, and the,
But
it's.
in Shannon Park.
But you don't.
No, but I think, I don't object when they're the face of the panels going with the roof pitch, but that one example that I sent has the back of,
So Mike, can you bring up those?
I can bring it up, yeah. Which one do you want to start with, that one?
it was, yeah, start with them. That's the issue that I'm trying to bring up.
Yeah.
And then once we get to some of this, I know that I want to hear from our Mike code officer Mike.
Depends on which topic, I've got a lot of.
I know, I was just,
I want to talk about boots and maybe also hats. I want to talk about boots, footwear,
Yep.
and maybe hats.
So here's the, here's.
that's the one I'm talking about.
Right, so these panels are up on the roof, but they're not angled the way that you would traditionally think they would be pointing.
That's ugly.
But that might be more than 24 inches.
That's 24 inches above the peak of the roof, I mean,
Across the street, that would be upsetting.
yeah.
I know, that's what
And you did have that one in yours that you originally worked on. It's also in the model law in a sense, and I
I
think
felt
like,
That's, are you saying that would not, that would violate it how we have it currently, like?
I don't
version-
know. It-
like-
in both, yeah.
It might not be more than 24 inches. All I'm saying is, I stumbled on this, I was led to this across from this church. I was led there. I was just like, oh my God, you know, I probably am.
Okay, so we can add a section, we should add a section then on if it's A, B, C, and also roof direction, then you're tier 1. And then if it's reverse direction, comes to the planning board, and you can take a look
What
at
do you
it.
think, Mike?
Can I bring something to your attention?
Yep,
Yes,
On the solar permit application form, the kind of the blanket one, item number 6 says if the structure is a sloped roof, solar panels are mounted parallel to the roof surface. So clearly they've already made some sort of distinction somewhere in here that things that are not parallel to the roof surface are somewhat problematic because they require the next level of permitting. So I think we're on a good track if we want to say that, and we want to be explicit that solar panels mounted parallel to the roof structure would fall into this kind of tier 1.
Well, looking at the state model law, but I think it was in the village one too, wasn't there under item 6A1? That was one of the requirements.
It sounded like you had a good point.
Panels be,
okay, now we can hear you, great, there we go.
start over, Yamila. We could not hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. So there's a spot and on the solar permitting form.
Is that unified solar permit?
Yep. So number 6 specifically calls out that
If the structure slopes on and parallel.
Where is that?
That's what Brent was talking about. Brent brought that up at the last meeting, the unified solar permit. It's not a Village of Lansing specific thing, it is a
Yes,
state
right.
specific thing. And that is the one where they collect a tremendous amount of information. And
Oh, yeah.
there was a question about how useful a lot of that information is, but
Right.
maybe item number 6.
But yeah, so item number 6 there says if the structure is a sloped roof, solar panels are mounted parallel to the roof surface. So it's clear that there's some sort of language already where it recognizes that mounted parallel is pretty kind of easy to accept, and anything other than parallel requires additional permitting. And I think that might be a good way for us to model what we're doing.
But
Yeah,
parallel,
I
but
think
Carl,
that
question.
proof is in both the state model and the marked draft with the multicolor markings on under 6A1B.
Oh my goodness.
Say one.
Do we have a page?
Yeah, it's the same, so on this one, it's, well,
155.
6,
it's on page 150, it starts on 155 and
155.
156, where it says, shall not extend above the top of the surrounding parapet or more than 24 inches above the flat surface of the roof, whichever is higher.
So would that have eliminated what we saw then, do you think?
It depends on if it's 24 inches above, and pull it back. I was trying to find the unified solar
See,
permit.
for my thing is, it's not the height so much as it's the fact that it's the back of the panels facing the front of the road, the front of the yard, or whatever. Just like we're saying we want it to be in the side yard, not the front yard. To me, it's not even the height so much at that point. It's probably that, it might be parallel to the pitch on the back, I have no idea. But it's that it
should be parallel to the pitch.
But it has to be.
Yeah, but that clearly has a mounting that's over on the front half of the roof because those mounting legs attach to the front of the roof. So this is, I think, I do think it sounds like what they have here in 6.1A would have eliminated this condition.
Solar shall be mounted with a maximum distance of 8 inches between the roof surface and the highest edge of the system.
That's down.
But maybe we also need to be specific about that it should be parallel to the front of the roof. Do you know what I mean? The front,
How much is
Or
parallel
whichever
to
side
the-
it's on,
Yeah, to the parallel to the side it's mounted on.
yeah.
So maybe we need some indication that items can't be mounted at the same time on both sides, because this thing looks like it's got mountings on one side and it must have mountings on the other side as well.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, it's just, I find it unattractive and I would like to be sure that it wouldn't happen. Let's put it that way. And that's just, I just was, and I never thought about it. We're saying, oh, anything roof mount is great. And then I see this thing and I thought, oh,
That's not.
hello.
Did you have a comment, Jim?
Well, yeah, two things. I think the picture we're looking at is awful. But it seems like the item B, which, well, two, in section 6, there's two things would cover it. Subsection B, panels on pitched roofs shall be mounted parallel to the roof surface on which they are mounted or attached, would knock this out. And if that didn't, item C would, because this is
Oh,
clearly
yes.
than the highest point of the roof surface on which they're mounted.
Okay,
But if you're going to, and I'm not completely in agreement with this, if you're going to promote solar, which is what I don't think we should be doing, but some houses naturally don't sit correctly. Okay, so do you have them rebuild the house? I mean,
They can come to the planning board, and if the planning board approves their plan, they can do it, and if not, then they can't.
I mean, it's like, does this look any worse than someone had an old antenna up there? I
I don't know how I
mean,
feel about
Yeah.
that.
I'm not happy with those either. I mean,
But to your point, right, there are some houses that just aren't built right, or they're entirely under shade, and nothing is gonna help with that.
maybe they can't.
You're not gonna
ground
put,
mount.
you're not gonna put roof mounted, potentially, you're not also gonna put ground mounted, unless you cut down trees, which we also, but, right, I mean, there's just some things you can't do with some houses. There's a lot of houses that just don't have the certain, the ground area to be able to put, a loop geothermal system in either. You just can't do it on your property, sorry.
But wait
It's
a
not, it's not,
but why would, but if they go to a reputable provider or vendor, aren't they going to be told that it's not a suitable site?
one would think so, yeah.
Yeah, unless you cut down trees, and then you start getting into the whole, do you want the solar panels or do you want the trees?
Well, I was gonna say, so back to your comment though, why do you feel we shouldn't be promoting solar? Because
I
of the
don't-
tree cut down?
Here's my whole thing, and it goes to the statement of purpose, where we say that this is number 2, the solar light worked on. Where it says the solar energy, I don't have my glasses, but it's too small. Solar energy is adapted in advance and protected for protecting health, safety, and welfare. I have a small issue with number 1 through 3, because we're promoting something.
Oh, I see.
And I don't think that that's what we're looking for. Let's say we take short-term rentals, for example. We're gonna make a law for short-term rentals, but it doesn't mean we're gonna promote short-term rentals. People are having short-term rentals, and we wanna make sure that it's safe for the public, for your neighbors or whatnot. We should take the same attitude with a solar project. If someone wants solar and they want it underground, we wanna make sure that it's safe.
Right.
That's the whole thing. We're not pushing, our purpose isn't to keep pushing solar. I've got solar. It's great. It's on my roof. But if somebody doesn't want it, I mean, we're not looking to promote something. We're looking to make it safe for somebody.
So the town, well, I was gonna say, that was actually my point, is I'm not fond of this whole intro. I really.
Just
thought-
take out too advanced, just.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you, I think the town of Ithaca kind of got it right, where they basically say, facilitate the development and operation of renewable energy systems. Not that we're promoting that.
For your facility.
Based on sunlight, because it's in the public interest to provide for and encourage renewable energy systems, sustainable quality of life, in accordance with the comprehensive plan. But what I really liked was that they said, solar energy systems are appropriate in all zoning districts when measures are taken as provided in this section to minimize adverse impacts on neighboring properties and protect the public health, safety, and welfare. I think that's a way better.
Yes, I like that. That's what you.
And so I think so that might
And
be a
so
real good
this is
example
the
of, we
kind of
should,
thing
yeah,
that
we should
I'm
rewrite
thinking-
that section that is, so it's,
If we would get some general things, I have some strong feelings about, yeah, I don't like that either, especially. I think there's a time for bulleting and listing, but this is not, doesn't work for me, given especially kind of the flavor we have with our code in general. And so I put a star here next to that one, because I like that language. But that doesn't mean we take all of this, or we take all of this, it's just that I just would like to know how everyone feels
I'm, so
as a
I,
board, because it's been in the works and it is a different board than when we started.
I have another question I wanted to raise about the general requirements, and it's B. Prior to the issuance of the building permit or final approval by the planning board, construction or site plans must be signed, stamped by a licensed engineer or architect.
and this is what, there's a reason.
I really don't-
You talked about
I
that.
don't like that.
Yeah.
No.
And is that, so, and this is a question for you, Mike, I mean, and so Carolyn and Lisa and I talked about that one, and is that really how we operate? So, this one right here, B.
It's in pink on page 155.
I also don't want there to have to be a seeker, so I would like a legal opinion as to whether we have to do a seeker. I'd like to take out number 5, FF also, if we can.
Well, and-
Except that our process has lately, was always to do a seeker for everything.
Well, so
Just
this
in
one's
general,
interesting.
Just period.
Well, this one kind of goes against, you know, one, and I agree with the principle about there should be, for some projects, we definitely want oversight. But there should be some that are easy that I want, you know, if, you know, 5 houses decide they want to put some solar panels on the roof and it's some small system, I don't want that to have to come to the planning board for, you know, final approval. I don't think that that has to come here. I would consider that more of a, hey, Mike can handle that sort of thing. This part makes it sound that, you know, hey, before you get a building permit or final approval by the plan, there's, I don't know, I just don't like the way that that sounds per
You know,
se.
yeah,
So C, I don't want to give up any power.
well, the fact of the matter is that final approval by the planning board, we don't know as much as our engineer and our code officer and our, we just don't, I mean, we could all be a bunch of English majors, and what the heck do we know? So, I mean, you know,
You know, when Brett
how to
talks
read
about
minutes, I will say.
wind shearing and-
General requirements to A and fire code D. And just language-wise, I would get rid of B, C, E, and F.
And is that for, are we still talking about tier 1, or what
For
about?
all the tiers.
Just general.
General requirements, those are for all
You
tiers.
had added
Oh, that's
one in-
right, you and I talked about
And
that.
we had added one in there, that very first one, that a building permit shall be required for installation of all solar energy systems.
Yeah.
That's something that, and there was, that's where, that little comment off to the side there, we had talked about also making, you know, some level of ease, right? Okay, well, if you fall under, you know, however we divide it up, and I think how they have it divided up into just 4 tiers isn't the best way. We had before talked about residential versus commercial. Maybe you fall into like residential tier 1, sure, you just need a building permit, but 2, 3, or 4, you need a special permit, same thing for
Okay,
commercial, but so.
Except, what if somebody,
And let me ask a question too. So I know Carolyn just said, I want to get rid of like, you know, B, C, D, E, and F, and I just want to keep A. I would rather go down the route of at least throwing some ideas out there as opposed to like trying to come up with language or say, tonight, like definitely we need to do it at some point, but to Lisa's point, I am really interested in hearing everyone's thoughts about just like general stuff at a high level, like, I took a note, like rewrite the statement of purpose section. I think we do that because the one that's in the model law is very like New York Statey, like, hey, here's something that might fit for everybody. If you look at like, you know, the town or the village or the next municipality, it's a lot more friendly and we can do that. So I took note of that. And thank you for nobody saying, well, here's what I think it should say. Let's not try to rewrite it tonight, oh, please.
okay, but, so a building permit shall be required for the installation, okay. Prior to the issuance or final approval, we don't need the final approval.
Yeah.
Construction and or site plan documents must be signed and stamped. Somebody somewhere's got to know what they're doing, though. You don't want just a do-it-yourselfer.
That's what a building.
Are you that person?
Well, so that was my question to Mike about that piece too, is like, say I want to put solar on my roof and I hire
myself. What if I
Sunlight,
do
yeah,
it?
that was, I think that was, what if I am a solar panel installer? It's my job, it's what I do. Gosh, I hope I know how to do it.
In general, are you really not gonna, I don't know if anybody puts their own solar panels up on their own roof.
Who knows, well,
I'm
yeah,
just saying, if a project, and this is uniform code, if a project is over $20,000, which most of these arrays are going to cost over, you are required to provide engineered plans.
okay,
So that's a given. I mean, that comes right from the uniform code.
okay, so we're
Doesn't matter
already,
what the project
Covered by
is.
that. So that's already covered by that.
so what you feel that we're covered already? Probably.
What I was gonna say is, I'd like to see you guys go, you're not scrapping it, go back to the basics here, separate like in tier one. Your roof mounted, I think, should have two different separations. I think it should be residential, which are probably gonna be your smaller arrays, and your commercial, which are generally gonna be your larger arrays. Okay, and your smaller arrays can be handled with, residential can be handled with basically a building permit, because like I said, if they come up with a project that's $40,000, I'm gonna need a stamp print anyway. It's gonna check out all of the basics, as far as engineering. I think something should be put in there about following, section 1204 of the fire code, which has all of.
It has that, D is that.
Yeah.
The other one I said to leave in.
Regulations in it anyway, or
I
follow.
was just making stuff up when I said remove A, B, C, D, E, and again.
The other part.
No, I want D.
But you're right, separate your roof mounted from your freestanding.
Yeah.
Because your freestanding, you want to be able to control what type of buffer or whatnot. It doesn't matter what size. You want.
That's exactly how we did it. That's what the, Tony and Lisa and
And
I,
that's what's in the original, that's what's in the original
And have
thing.
that as a special permit. If you have a ground array, have it as a special permit, because now you're talking about setbacks, you're talking about buffers, you're talking about everything else that I don't, setbacks I do, but buffers, I don't handle that, going out there and say, oh, this is a good buffer.
Right.
But, so that's how I would split it.
Okay,
Your roof into three parts, and then go ahead and do your
ground mounted.
arrays, your ground arrays. I would avoid the whole square footage, I would go more capacity or.
What did you
how
just,
much-
more what?
Capacity.
Oh, capacity, I'm sorry.
Capacity, how-
Oh, yeah, well,
Because, for example, I know that 500 was a benchmark, you just put in there, but you're talking about an accessory building is up to 400 square feet, anything over that's a principal building. So now you have different setbacks, and it becomes complicated that way.
so,
the counter argument to that is only that the technology changes.
Yeah, you could have
you could
the
have,
size of this.
Right, but if you're doing it by capacity, suddenly you can't have something super small without coming to the planning board.
because it's sort of like.
If technology advances,
That we
that was,
refrigerator.
that's just where what we were thinking about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right now, maybe the
We-
solar panel's this size to make
Yeah.
100 watts, and then in the future, it's this size to make 100 watts.
Just
All of a sudden,
computers.
we'd be happy for them to do 700, but they can't because of the way we structured it. But then you can go back and change it, so, but it's so hard to do it the first time.
Maybe size is the way to go for ground mounted or whatnot.
Well, we try,
Sure.
well, that's why, so when I drove around and took those pictures, so we looked at a basic panel is, what is it, 3 by 5?
3 by 4,
Oh,
yeah.
3.5, or, yeah, 3 by 5.5 or something. So, to get the idea, but that same size in 10 years could probably light up the whole town for all we know, you know what I mean? We just don't know, because, I mean, I worked in a place once where a megabyte of memory was the size of 2 refrigerators, and now it's like, you're this big, it's like, who knows? So I think that's why we were thinking of size kind of more than, or capacity, not, size.
Yeah,
It was size.
Size, not capacity. But
but then you do have to come up with a magic number, which is.
And that's the thing,
you
that-
have to come up, well, you have to start somewhere, and obviously, then when it
Did
becomes
we
a
ever come up
problem.
with a magic number in ours?
So,
You did in yours, yeah, and it's interesting,
Magic number did we come up
I
with?
want to say it was like 25, no.
oh, wait a minute, I have the original one we talked about.
No.
Lisa and I looked at it like relatively.
Greater than
recent.
20 megawatts?
No, 2000.
4,000, we went 4,000.
Square feet.
Which is,
Small residential roof mounted 40, we went to, it said 2,000 square feet. I wrote in 4,000, less than or equal to 75 kilowatts. I don't know, does that make any sense? Megawatts? less than mega, something, B, small roof-mounted solar energy systems, building permit less than 20 megawatts. I don't know. This was so long
So
ago.
we still have to come up with what we think the
Yeah.
size
Yeah.
is, or we can,
But I think, and so this is a good example too, right? The guiding principle, what, do we want to go by square footage or do we want to go by name capacity? The picture from Burdick Hill is up on the screen, and they've got a ground mounted and they have some stuff on the
you know,
roof.
Lisa and I stopped there and counted those, and we
there's
thought,
20 there.
we should have let them do like one third of that.
But the one down here in Oak Crest is actually 21, it's 7 by 3.
That's 7 by 3, yeah.
And,
Yeah, so if you look at this ground mounted solar right
And
here,
they
that's
have-
like,
but now there's a good example of the two roofs.
Yep.
They have the very steep pitch, and then they have over their garage.
yeah, and I don't know if those are both solar or not. I think the one on up here on the highest peak, I think that might actually be hot water, but it's still panels up there. I think that one's hot water. I think the ones on the garage and the ones on the ground are solar.
Oh, then what's that, hot water?
They use it to heat the water for the house.
Oh.
I think it is.
Well, that's also a solar panel.
Yeah,
It's
isn't
a
it?
type of solar panel, right?
It's just not energy generating per se
So-
to close.
Still would be regulated though.
Are there any other parts, Mike Scott, that are kind of already covered by stuff that we just don't make sense for even to just, I mean, we
Right, yeah.
want this to, we want to simplify this as much as possible.
Yes, there's an area here where it describes,
What section are we in?
I'm trying to find all my notes, because I went through quite a bit here. Section 8,
Permitting requirements for tier 3 solar energy systems, page 157.
yeah, basically, isn't it basically describing what happens with a special permit? I mean, it can kind of be eliminated, all that stuff actually happens.
What section is it?
The definition of a special permit, period. I mean, it talks in here, subject to public hearing, all comments and for.
Oh, I see, you mean the
GML
way, you mean
239, yeah.
they list a process that's already covered.
I was gonna
So
say, if there was
exactly.
something, if there was something different under here that wasn't like how we normally go, but, this one, yeah, you're right, this one is very, very standard, like, we're gonna do the GML 239, we're gonna do this,
So-
we're gonna do this, we just do that for all of them, because it's a special permit.
You got in here where trees cut over 6 inches, I mean, we've got a law that covers.
So in other words, we just need to simply say a special permit is required.
Yeah,
And all
And in compliance
applicable, yeah,
with applicable code, yeah.
then the definition of special permit comes into that.
Okay, so that's,
So if you want to eliminate some wording on it, I mean, you could,
yeah, that makes sense.
The only thing that's added under there is when you, well, so you're just talking about like under section A, that piece of it?
Applications for instance.
Because under B, they start to talk about then, nameplates and, I don't know if we need all, like, I don't even know if I've ever heard of this, probably not, but 6, where it says maps of MSG 1 through 4 soils and active agricultural lands in the parcel.
What the heck?
Yeah,
And could we cut out the pollinator, native vegetation, and soil groups as being part of, otherwise covered in the code?
right.
Like, not specific, I don't need definitions specific to solar that are different than anything else that we have.
Well, and I think that's the point, right?
Those three, pollinator, soils, and native vegetation.
Well, this is, yeah, okay,
if you can, anything that's ground mounted, if you did adopt the unified map, it would cover all of everything that's listed in here anyway. And then your more simple projects, like your roof mounted stuff, is just a basic building permit, at which they would supply, like my manual J, the engineering I need, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of covered. Some of this can really be crossed out.
good, that's what I'm
Yeah, that's, I
wondering.
think, right, that's the
They're
goal.
covered in some other sections. Not that, I'm not belittling this at all, but why be redundant if?
No.
Right.
We
Well-
have the decommissioning, which we could probably utilize, like our
The same one for telecommunications.
probably see the certain sections for telecommunications. I'd have to check and make sure that we found out if figuring what the actual bond would be is calculated the same for solar panels as it is for
Yeah, we want to include it here, but we want to be sure that it's consistent with our code already. Yeah,
so
okay.
there's some things you can kind of, I know you had talked about trying to condense this a little bit, but keeping the same characteristics in it. This is some of the ways we
Yeah.
can reutilize what's already in the code.
Yeah, because, you know, I think we get involved with special permits, but I don't think we have a really good grasp, honestly. I mean, I'm not reading the code all the way through all the time.
Right, and I bet there's some
And you're the
sections
one
in there that
person
we
that
just
we-
don't, it just hasn't come up.
I know,
I'm
that's
sure
what
there's
I-
lots of stuff in there, right, but it hasn't come up yet, so.
One thing I want to be careful about when we finish is things that say like, to the extent possible, like tree cutting, removal of existing trees should be
Oh, yeah,
minimized to the
I
extent
want to be more
possible.
specific.
That is not doing us any favors.
No.
That's one of those.
Wishy-washy.
I want to be like, you cannot cut a tree more than 6 inches without the express permission of the planning board. And there may be one that you guys say, that one is terrible, cut that one down, but most likely you're gonna say, if it's over 6 inches, you would need to put it somewhere else. But I don't want any to the extent practicable or possible language, because
I agree, well, they.
Back to bite us.
I mean, whenever, yeah.
Whenever possible.
whenever possible, take, and we have to think about, anytime it says that, and think about what
I've
we really
always
want.
hated that stuff.
If we said refer to
The tree law.
Cover that, would it
Yeah.
cover?
Yeah,
Probably, yeah, but yeah.
I mean, I would look and say like, yeah, you know, for the,
in accordance with the tree law.
Everything in this section is subject to blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
Tree law.
We have all language
Yeah.
of trees in this.
yeah, I would say the same thing, you know, not that I think there's anything in here, but anything, if there was sidewalk stuff in here, or lighting stuff in here, again, I don't think people put lights on their solar panels, but these things that we have laws for, reference the law, and if we need to go and change that law to include some specific thing, maybe that's a good idea.
Well, by the way, that was another exclusion that we wanted to put in, which maybe you do and maybe you don't. We wanted a single stand of solar, like say you were gonna line your driveway with little cute windmills that are solar powered or whatever, anything that's like freestanding, that's just like a single light bulb, we were gonna exclude. So,
I must be.
like you line your driveway with those, you know what I'm telling you
Yeah, I
about?
know what you're
This
talking about.
big.
Those aren't,
The little solar lights.
it's a solar light, yeah, but those aren't like, and I wonder how they cover here, because that's not really for generation. But
Solar lights that light that lights its own thing. I don't know how to put
Yeah,
that.
it's generating electricity for itself, not for your house or
So it
something
would be a
else.
decorative.
So that's just an exclusion. And maybe we need to put that in, or maybe it's just implied that that's excluded.
It's for a decorative.
I hate to imply something, because then I can think of people who would come back and say something and be like, no, I just installed 5,000 decorative lights on my property. It's
Well, that should then really be part of the lighting code, actually.
So maybe there's something in the lighting code that those are allowed. I don't know. That was something
It is,
we wanted to
it's in
exclude.
there in the lighting code.
Still do.
So I just have a question I want to ask. So if, say somebody comes and shows up in the office someday and they're like, hey, Mike, I want to put solar panels on my house. Is this a document you would hand to them and say, here are the village, okay, this is just for our internal?
I mean,
like-
this,
Well,
this,
the code ultimately they should be
Right.
aware of. But Mike, how do you get the code across to somebody when they walk in the door?
We've had a couple, three, want to put some roof mount, actually I had one today, that wanted to put roof mounted ones on it. And they, this was, I believe it was Helco, and they've done quite a few of them. And they asked me, do you need the unified solar permit? And I said, well, we haven't adapted to that yet, but you need to send me the engineered prints for it, which they sent it right over to me, because they would have to have it anyplace else. And then they also sent in how they were setting it up, how they were, basically going by the uniform code, what, all the areas that they have, you know, this is what we're doing because this is what is required. Some of the more experienced companies are already used to the uniform code, and they're already used to giving me all the information. I have yet to have someone who wanted to do a solar project not have a ton of information already for me.
Well, that's what I'm thinking too, is for them, and I can't imagine, and as you say, half the time it's gonna be greater than $20,000 too.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of this, so the unified solar permit form that Yamila mentioned in the print, how big a thing is that? I mean, do we need to, should we be looking at that for language or anything?
That's one thing I have to ask Natalie, whether that's something that the planning board decides or references to the board of trustees, or something that I recommend we use to the board of trustees.
Okay, because it sounds like that would kind of clear the way a lot, on a lot of things.
Brent hit the nail on the head. I mean, it provides so much information. It's great for, decent sized projects, but if somebody wants to put a little small thing on their roof or whatnot, it's a little bit of an overkill.
I was gonna pull it up to show everybody, except the PDF that the state provides is 233 pages. I know exactly how many of those pages are the permit, but,
I mean, I've got it in there.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's something, yeah, okay, so we
You want some
have
copies
to,
of it?
huh?
Can we make you some copies of it?
If it's 233 pages, no, but.
no, I don't know how long the actual permit, roughly, do you know how long the permit is?
It's not just that attachment.
Is it like 5 pages? Is it
9 pages.
9
Oh,
pages?
yeah, I think it was.
The unified solar permit, we all have it in our email.
Yeah, I sent it.
Oh, the one that you emailed out.
That's
Oh,
what you sent to us.
Oh,
okay.
sorry, it's 5
I would like
pages.
a copy, but.
Yeah, I didn't send you some of
At
the
it.
attachments that come with it, where they had the.
Project eligibility, submittal instructions, application deadline, other information.
I can't print it out with, I have to go to my husband's.
There's more to it than that, but that's the basics.
it's not bad.
The technical.
Oh, yeah, see, yeah,
Yeah.
so to,
Solar companies are used to filling them out now, because most places require them.
it just makes everybody's life easier if everybody just does this thing. It's sort of like a FAFSA form. Or used to be. Okay, well, that's good. Any,
But that would provide, it would certainly provide all the energy that you have in for general requirements.
so what about the designation of a solar energy system as an accessory building? How do people feel about that? Because if we do that, if we call it an accessory building, or then we've already in our code have these height limitations, and I'm not sure that serves us the way we
And
want to.
setbacks, I wonder if,
400 square feet or 15 feet high.
That's small.
15 feet?
No, 400 square feet is small.
Yeah, but 15
Now,
feet
Make
isn't.
make sure, there was an issue in Cortland.
Would they do a straight one?
No, what they did was.
Totem pole?
The argument was when they had.
it's the post.
Yeah, they
Now-
counted what the post was into the ground.
You put a post in the ground, not the panel that's up off the ground.
So make it be specific that it's actually the panel, the array. that's-
Yeah, I mean, no matter what you do, somebody's gonna come up with a loophole.
And so I don't know how I feel about when it comes to, like, I think roof, that one's easy, but when it comes to ground mounted, there's a bunch, so I could take a 400 square foot solar panel and lay it flat on the ground, and that's 400 square feet. If I put it up on one post, it still has 400 square feet. If I now tilt that, it's not really taking up 400 square feet on the ground, it's now taking up less because you've put it at an angle. If you're talking about square footage on the ground, if you tilt it, that's less. So that one, I don't know how
It's not a building, but I'm not on the planning board.
I don't disagree with you, by the way, I don't know how much, I don't know what the ramifications of saying that's not an accessory building are to code and everything else.
It's how Cortland State skipped around having to do a seeker for it because it was under the threshold of square footage.
See, well, so when
I'm
this one
anti-doing
is,
speakers, so that means even more in favor of that.
so, but this one was this particular one, the New York State one, where it says height, solar panels restricted to a height of 6 feet when located at a distance of 6 to 10 from a lot line. And so they had their little chart, permissible height, depending on how close it was to the lot line. That's the kind of stuff that worries me, is that if it's accessory building, it can go to what, 35 feet high?
Accessory building, it wouldn't be an accessory building if it's over 15 feet high. It's a principal.
Oh, 15. Oh, so it can only go 15 feet. Even so,
That's still high for.
yeah, it
everyone
is.
Next to you.
Yeah,
So I don't like that, actually, personally, but we can deal with that.
We should have a height restriction,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to call it a building. To me, it's just not a building.
but.
Definitely have a height restriction.
put a height restriction on ground mounted solar arrays, what do you call it, an accessory building?
Yeah, okay.
or
I guess
whatever.
everybody does call it accessory, they include it in their codes as accessory building, but,
They do?
yeah, like pools, I've never understood it, I just.
building.
Pools are too.
Yeah, I've never understood.
Pools or buildings?
Pools
Accessory
are,
structures.
that was one of the first things when I got the board, I thought, everybody's talking about accessory building, and then talking about pools, and I'm not understanding. No, but it just didn't make sense, and then finally, I think I asked Marty, I don't understand. He says, oh, it just does it. Pools are called access, they have the same restrictions as an accessory
So
building.
wait, then if it gets too big, does that make it
You just don't want a 15-foot high pool.
okay? Well,
So deep water.
But there's a lot to be,
Luckily, nobody in Ithaca ever wants to build a pool. Yeah.
so do we have a direction for Carol and me to go?
oh, I don't
I don't know, maybe Mike should be the next directioner. You can just redline everything you think is unnecessary.
What else do you have notes about? You said you had a bunch of notes. What did we
Yeah,
not,
pretty much covered, I went through and covered, I pretty much covered a lot, there's other things like where some of these numbers came from, like, applicability number 4.
Maybe I should come drop in and we could just go through it and you could just, could notate one?
Yeah, I mean, if there's some areas, like I said, you could just X out because it's.
It's in our code.
It's in.
that would be a good start.
And it
If we
would
just
be-
knew what we didn't even have to look at, that would be outstanding, yeah.
I think that might be worthwhile, huh?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, why would we repeat our own?
Well, and when Natalie looks at, she might say, oh, no, there's this one thing in there that if you X that out, it's gone, but then we can say, okay, like, if we accidentally removed D, and she said, well, no, you really need that in their fire code, and that's the only thing in there, maybe we can move.
I'll leave the
I
fire.
know that, but just an example. Gosh, I hope so. But no, maybe if it's just that one thing in a section, we just say,
Okay, well, we're just gonna move that to this other section. Everything else in there can go, but we need to keep this one line. I think maybe it's silly to have this whole section.
Well, I'd like to start with that, because if
Yeah.
start
Oh, no, I
that
think
would
so.
simplify things a lot. And then address some of the language, like we did say, I don't care for the statement of purpose and all that.
I liked your statement of purpose, let's put.
I was gonna say, I think the model one should just go anyway, and we
Yeah.
can rewrite something that's nicer, that fits
That
what
was
we
the
do
town.
here.
That references the comprehensive plan, everybody's happy.
no, we just have to rewrite the comprehensive plan. too.
Yes.
So, I mean, do you want me to go through this and start,
I'm-
okay, this section can be crossed out because it's covered in.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, can you want to do that?
Want to do that?
Want is a strong word.
To do that?
You said,
We're paid.
Would you be willing to do that sometime, Mike?
yeah, do you want me to do it, or?
Would you do this, the honor of doing that?
Oh, that's very romantic, it is Valentine's Day tomorrow.
I wonder too, Mike, in that same area, when we talk about like definitions, I think some of these, for the solar thing are probably really important, like glare,
Glare is, it should be.
kilowatt, I don't know, whatever.
A farm operation also.
No.
That went back to part of that New York,
Farm operation?
that went
But there's
back to
one
part of
place I think we
state
have-
law thing, which was weird, because I was like, well,
We already defined farm operation elsewhere in the code.
well, and that's my question to Mike, is like, could we get rid of things like native perennial vegetation? Isn't that covered somewhere else? Like, you had mentioned that in another section. It's here as a.
Oh, this same one.
Oh, is that the same one? Oh, okay.
But so I think I saw the soil group thing, like, there's the definition for soil group here in the definition section. And then as you start going through, there's another thing
That's an exact copy of the same definition. They just copied it and pasted it. I'm like, that's not helping at all.
No.
There was one part in here about pollinating, I'm trying to
Well,
remember.
that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, and it had like, I can't remember all the animals, but they had bats in there, and I'm like,
Bats?
bats pollinate?
Oh, they do, well, yeah, they do. Some of them, it depends on the kind of bat.
Bees, birds, bats, and other insects.
Hey, where are you reading this?
This is right under the definition, but you can find it in any section, because all they did, thus defeating the purpose of the definition section, by the way. Right. Instead of saying reference definition, they actually just put the whole definition back in there.
Why bother then? Yeah.
Right.
Right. And then I'd be
Do we
curious,
always put definitions at the front? I guess so.
Front of the code.
Well, I mean, huh?
It's in the front of the code, it's in. the
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Unified code.
I always think it's,
I think it's probably easier to have it in front. It's-
yeah, I guess, so that then when you come across it, then you know what it is.
so at a general principle then, it sounds like everyone agrees, like, it would be good if we had like a residential and a commercial section for roof mounted.
Yes.
We'll want to put, there's that other thing in there that we should, the whole like building integrated, but anything that's really not like ground standing. And then when it comes to ground mounted, how do we want to tackle that? Do we want a residential versus a commercial, or do we want it, like, in the model, they had sort of put out like thresholds for the different, it really equates to size, like, how big, whether you say that is square feet or nameplate, how big of a ground mounted are you talking about? Do we care residential versus commercial for that, or do we just care, how big is this thing gonna be?
I think that the planning board should take a look at the ground mounted, because
think so.
they've been problematic, and our village isn't that big. It's not like there's 700 coming through each year.
Up again. I personally would.
So, like, have a few
residential
different-
versus
have a few different
By zone
tiers?
maybe, or by district.
Well, and that's the other thing.
Don't you want to look at it either way?
Oh, yes, I
So
do.
it's just, I mean, you don't have to divide it if they're both coming before the planning board.
Well, that's true. That is true. But you know, there is kind of a misconception sometimes that people forget, as we do even, I think sometimes, that a special permit is not a right, it is special. And so we will put conditions on it. And I think sometimes people don't realize that when they come as
I
a
wonder
resident.
why, I hadn't thought about,
Residential.
I hadn't thought about special condition, like, other than our standards, but we got our standards, conditions for a special permit. I wonder if, I haven't thought about this, again, a set of any unique ones for ground mounted, like you said, vegetation or.
Well, I would, like, the one picture, you really couldn't see it, but, you know, they'd put up a fence, the people from Black Chin, and then the thing was on the other side, and there was some shrub, you know, the usual kind of junk shrubs that we have around here, the invasive stuff, but it was a good thing they were there, but without that, I would suggest that then the people installing that stuff should have put up a buffer.
So we put that in the original one for the tier 2, which was going before the planning board. It also would say in the code that it must comply with existing lot sizes, must provide screening to minimize views from adjacent properties. And that would be what the planning board would then, when they're doing the special permit, require.
Are there other things, though, like that seem, I know that's the one, that's the one example that we've shared, right? I just wonder if, you know, people have other ones that they would want to.
We also said.
Well, if you think of stuff, just.
And trees, so those 4 things were written here, so they would have that expectation.
Okay. But if,
So if you had someone come in, to an example, I mean, Carolyn just kind of did, but if you got someone coming in, and let's say they got a 1,000 square foot ground mounted array.
right.
Okay, they need a special permit, they'll come in, they'll provide all of the information, probably most all the information that I would get for a building permit anyway, they provide me. And it would come to the planning board, and at that point, you can handle things like, okay, are there trees that have to come down? Are there, how far off the, well,
Setbacks and height and everything.
you give, okay, a buffer doesn't need a buffer. It would give people a chance to, it's a public hearing, gives your
Well, I would
neighbors.
say, that's the most important thing, is it's a
Yeah.
public
Hey,
hearing.
I would like to see this done, could you buffer it a little bit more here?
But again, I wonder, you know, we've run into this across before, where it's not like we can, there are certain things that, yes, we can say, hey, developer, you have to do this.
But we
But
can,
there's other things where we can say, hey, it would be really nice if you.
but this is what we don't, that doesn't make sense, though, no. We have the authority to require this, and especially if it's going to interfere with somebody else's property.
Well, and so I would put that somewhere in here, like specifically in here saying, you know, the planning board reserves the right to require buffering, not like, hey, it would be nice if you could put 2 trees over there. No, we're gonna require you to put buffering in.
Yeah, definitely.
Not, and it goes back to what
No,
Carolyn said about
no,
not like a,
no.
you know, if available, no, like, we're going to make
To the
you.
extent practicable.
No, like, you have to, or, well, it doesn't fit there, well, then you're gonna have to move your array somewhere else where you can fit that buffer.
Well, because I wanted to, you know, when we did our tree thing, and Zach, my neighbor, came before the board, and I spoke to him after, and I said, well, so what did you think? He said, I had no idea how much work goes into all this. He says, I'm just totally on board with having street trees, though. He says, I think it's great. And so here, you know, and so you'd be surprised, people just don't think sometimes about some of this stuff. They're so excited about having solar panels and all that, they're not thinking about the fact that, oh my God, my neighbor's vegetable garden just took a dive.
Yeah, this would be great, I can plug my truck in and I don't have to pay for electricity.
Oh, I know.
Your rose-winning, or your award-winning rose garden's dead? I don't have to pay for electricity for my truck, though. Yeah, right,
But I
exactly.
mean, I do think we just tend to get pretty, you know, involved, self-absorbed, and just don't think. And half the time, if you make it really clear up front, people are fine with, or just say, oh, okay, as long as it's not outlandishly expensive.
Right.
And this is not it's already expensive, so.
I was gonna say, if
this
you're
is
doing
just gonna
this,
be another
if we
couple
said, oh,
$100
you
for
have to, have
shrubs.
a certified planting plan from a botanist, I mean, that's gonna be pennies compared to what you're paying for the.
Well, I don't know if we need-
But as an example, if we require, some thing above and beyond what we would normally do.
But one would hope that if you have a public hearing, that adjacent properties
Mm-hmm.
would come to the public hearing as well.
If you're, what I'd recommend, going back to what I was saying, is the roof mounted for residential, I would handle just strictly through a building permit.
Right, I think we all
I would say
agree.
a roof mounted through commercial, I'd like to say have that special permit, but I can't come up with a good reason why, I just gotta figure.
It's a size thing, that's where we did the over,
I feel like there's something.
Any commercial, well, I just think a commercial thing,
I can't see handing out just a building permit for if the mall wants to put.
no.
Yeah, that's.
what if Llama did? That's basically like a house, the old McDonald's building.
Right.
If they were gonna do it and it complied with the directional things that we're saying and the height and everything, why not?
It shouldn't, I don't think we should, I think it's either commercial.
All right, I don't have strong feelings about it, but I would say,
No,
small enough.
I do though. Anything commercial I think has to come
Okay,
in front of us.
It doesn't matter to me.
It's just a corner.
They're a for-profit organization, that's a
Okay,
commercial.
all right.
I just think you just keep it simple, and we maybe don't make it arduous for them, but have them come in.
Right.
I agree.
And it's just like, it's by example, right? So other people would say, someone saw that on McDonald's and they're like, oh, and McDonald's is like, oh yeah, we didn't even have to get a permit or anything for this, like,
Yeah.
and then before you know.
But then the next person comes in and we're like, oh, well, yeah, we really should see
I'll just say one counter argument, and I don't super care, is that one of our original goals, whether it's still going on, was to make it facilitate solar energy. And then to that, there is not that much of a hurdle to come, for a business to come to before the planning board. But we were thinking of hurdle elimination as a positive attribute. Also,
I think
don't have strong
for
feelings.
commercial, that they have different expectations,
Okay.
and we should have different expectations of commercial.
Okay.
I think they'll build it into their business plan.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm gonna lump developers into commercial, because that's really what it is, I feel like there's just been so many instances in just the time that I've been on the board that a developer or somebody for a commercial property, we got burned because we didn't specifically, and I don't see there being so many, and again, it can change, maybe we say, wow, this is, maybe for the next few years, it's fine, because not a lot of people are doing it, and we see a couple of them a year, and that's great, and then all of a sudden, everybody wants to do it, because there's some new rebate from the state or something, and we start to see, a ton of these things, and maybe we rethink that, but I think to be on the safe side for now, I would love to see commercial properties come to.
So one thing that I thought of is when that one group came, they were the solar farm developer,
Oh, Solar Farms, New York?
yeah, the ones that
Yeah.
were gonna go over, near Dart Drive in the
Yeah.
back, it was a development.
Oh, right, yeah, okay, sorry, now that's
It
not
was
Solar Farms, New York.
totally-
Yeah, I remember, they wanted to do that Echo.
Oh, no, that's something different, right?
Yeah, no, they had it was sort of the prefab, eco-friendly
So,
Dart Drive development.
So that, I'm wondering, one of the things that I've thought about is what if, for example, the beer property decided they would like to put solar panels on their roofs? Would we have any
Well,
objection to
technically,
that?
those are residential houses, right?
You have to get building permit separate.
That's how, that was only, would be a building permit, right? Oh, okay.
But if they wanted to come in and say they weren't building, single houses and duplexes there, if they were gonna come in and build, what if they were gonna, where does like a.
That was a crazy project, I forgot about that.
And like a 3-story building with, like,
So if-
Manly's thing, is that
what if
residential
they-
or is that commercial?
Would that be like the,
Graham Road?
No, Cayuga View, is that residential or commercial?
that's,
That's residential.
Okay, so if he wanted to do, that would just be a building permit. If he wanted to put solar
So-
Under our
panels.
definition, yeah.
Yeah,
so any residential, Lansing Meadows, huh?
he's not putting solar panels on his thing.
But I mean, okay, so any residential, even though it is a commercial developer, but,
Go for it.
okay.
So then
Alright, so-
maybe the question is it, single duplex? Do we want to have do we have somewhere in our laws that says it can be multifamily up to a certain number of units? And then beyond that, it has to go to a different kind of ruling?
You can specify that it's single and or either single, multifamily, or duplex, you can specify that. You could even leave out the multifamily, if the buildings, generally your multifamily or larger buildings. You can lump those with commercial if you want, and just have single
Possible.
duplex.
I don't know, like,
I don't.
I like the building permit idea for, right, sure, like, you know, a single family, a duplex. What, you know, what if Manley came in and he wanted to put solar panels all over the top of that building for the benefit of Cayuga View? Do we?
Nobody'd ever see it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we, it's residential.
Do we care?
Which building are you talking
So
about?
how is that zoned over there? That's
Right.
residential.
Residential?
View is right across the street.
Oh, no, it's actually
Is
mixed.
that commercial?
It's,
So it's not the zone, and so this I asked Mike, it's not the zoning, it's what the building is used for. Is it inhabitable? Like people.
Know what it means.
So when I asked you, how do you differentiate between residential and commercial?
You can go by the uniform code, what category, every building is categorized, whether it's an R1, 2, 3, 4, whether it's a mercantile, you know,
Well, and that-
commercial.
But don't they have on the bottom level, weren't they gonna have a coffee shop or
Oh,
stuff?
that's right, yeah, did they ever?
Yeah, do they have any, do they have empty?
Wasn't it mixed
Yeah.
use?
They have
Mixed
empty
use would be
spots over there?
classified as your commercial.
So that building
So that
is,
particular-
that's a bad example, that one is mixed use, so
Yeah,
that
I
would be
was gonna
commercial,
say
yeah.
that would
If there's
be,
commercial in it, then it's a commercial building, doesn't matter whether it's.
But what if it was all apartments, no commercial,
That's more than likely to be an R2.
and that's residential?
so like, for
Residential.
example, across the street,
If it has a
of the
sleeping
former
quarters.
Eau Claire, whatever, you know, those would be residential, right? Across the street from CFCU.
Oh,
The Eau Claire,
the Park Grove place, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's residential, yeah, yep.
What's that called now? I can't even.
it's called,
It used to be called Chateau Claire. What's it called now?
it's something you can never remember. Trip Hammer,
Terrace?
No, it's
Trip Hammer
Trip Hammer
Apartments.
Heights. or
No,
something like that.
no.
But whatever, that's residential.
Anyway, yeah, but then, but
told them
what
that.
about the strip mall that's right there that they own with the apartments?
There's
The what?
Apartments in that strip mall? It's all commercial in there.
I was gonna
Right,
say-
but they own it. It's all that
But
property
that's-
is the same.
Yeah, but that's a separate structure, right?
Commercial building.
But then you've got the hotel next door to the Cuba View, right?
Yes,
But the hotel's commercial.
That's,
oh, yes.
Commercial, it's just rental.
this is all in the uniform.
So, yeah, I think we do separate.
That's all stuff is all defined in the uniform code.
We separate one, like like,
Commercials, they just gotta come in for,
I'm okay, I think I'm okay with it,
regardless of what it is.
yeah, I think that's fine.
It is called Trip Hammer Apartments. Just can't do it.
I'm okay with that.
So,
And then maybe it does get simplified. I know when you look through the model, they had like, you know, hey, here's tier 2, 3, and 4, and those were all, and maybe there was a fifth one in there, I forget. Those were all ground mounted. Actually, maybe one of them wasn't. No, I think that one is, yeah, it's all ground mounted. 2 is ground mounted, 3 is ground mounted, 4 is ground mounted. Do we have to do that, or we,
What are the differences?
the size of the array?
the
really.
capacity or the size, both. What's-
Other than the last one, and that was really anything that doesn't fit into one of these other tiers, and those are things that are generally, that's a state. The process starts with the state. That's like a solar farm.
So,
But do we need those, or do we just say, we got roof residential, roof commercial, and ground mounted? Ground mounted, we want a special permit for.
well, the reason for the third tier, or the reason for the larger tier is that there is something in between the state-regulated solar farms and,
A big something.
yeah,
You can have a substantially large one that isn't big enough to fall under the state regulation.
right, so that's what we were trying to regulate with the last section previously.
But if we're saying, hey, if you're gonna do ground mounted, you need to come and apply for a special permit.
Okay, but then we are getting past the usual special permit conditions, because then there's a lot more conditions that we had previously thought were important. And this was a section that I didn't write, that I just copied from Marty, but you're talking about something that is, like I said, a farm, almost a farm, or it is a farm. It's a farm, it's not violating setbacks, it doesn't need buffering, and it's not big enough for the state to regulate it. And then did we want to regulate that kind of a unit And if so, did we want all of these things about, you know, parking and access and lighting and security and.
That's where they talk.
Entertaining.
Things like that, yeah.
But the decommissioning should be for me.
But you're gonna have the decommissioning for everything?
Say put it for every.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
Resident-
I guess that's a good question, yeah.
yeah, I think you have to,
So,
kind of, I mean, especially if it's ground mounted.
I mean, if I move into a house and they have a ground mounted solar, I'm gonna say thanks, and I'm gonna keep it, but that's besides the point. Really, you guys gotta get rid of that before I buy
it's
this.
also required fencing
Yeah.
around it, which we wouldn't normally require.
If I put a small one in at my house, I don't think there would be the condition to put fencing around it or access or parking. Maybe, I remember when we talked about the battery energy storage too, that was, there was.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that also, but first, I guess, we should think about this. Do we want to put a
So maybe two,
cap on size or capacity?
or is it, or I wonder if it's, do we do the same thing? Residential ground mounted versus, well, residential you would think would.
Cap on, no, this would be commercial.
Well, I'm saying a residential ground mounted and a commercial ground mounted to have them,
And the commercial ground mounted either has a cap and you can't do this in the village, or maybe we do allow this business on, say somebody buys a farm that currently exists in the village, or a few, and wants to be a solar farm, but then,
yeah.
so is there a need to fill that sizing space?
Okay.
Is a question I'm not sure the answer of.
I don't know yet. I can't get my head into that one.
Well, I think it's easy to say, like, you know, if I put a ground mounted solar right in my house, it's gonna be small.
Yeah.
But what if,
So one of the things that you and I talked about too, though, is what is the front yard and what is the
Yeah.
side yard?
So this one also had like community engagement request. So this is more. So This is if you're doing like a farm, like a business,
Right, so it's-
solar business.
right, it's not so much between putting ground mounted into your house versus like commercial, it's like, maybe I want one in my house. Yeah, but this is a farm, this is clearly, you're not putting a big array in to help power your equipment on your business, you're doing this as a business.
Right, and so I do,
Maybe that's the differentiation.
but it's not big enough that the state's regulating your business.
Right, but no, we would want to,
Right, it's almost like here's the residential piece, here's you want ground mounted for your commercial piece, or you want to run solar as a commercial, like, business, your
But is it-
business is.
And the only real difference is, you know, if you think about that, if they're putting together multiple lots, I mean, yeah, so you have all this in here in tier two. I would have almost put three in, for us, I think it's putting
3 and 4.
3 and 4 together, and then keeping some of this.
Right, two is really meant to, well, but there's some in one, so it would come out of,
Right, there's ground mounted in tier 1, but that's really meant for residential, for the most part, I mean.
Our whole system is completely different than this, because we're gonna do residential ground, residential commercial, yeah. So we're gonna have maybe actually 5 tiers, and then this last tier is the farm. This-
or actually, don't we really have a residential piece and a commercial piece? And there's,
Well, there's tiers in each one.
yes,
So it's 4, so that would be 4.
So you said, Lisa, your front and your side,
yeah,
they're defined in their code.
yeah, they are. What is that?
How
Does
do
it
they
start at the corner of the front of the major, like if you have an addition on your house and stuff? How does that work?
I'll find the exact wording for you.
Okay.
How this definitely,
I'm curious.
Because I was gonna say,
but if you go by unified code, residential building,
yeah,
it's your detached 1 and 2 family buildings that are not above 3 stories above grade plane, or not above grade plane. And anything that's in, classified as an R2, R3, or R4 that's not more than 3 stories tall, so the cube of view is more than 3 stories to be classified as.
and it's also mixed
And there's
use.
commercial in there anyway.
And there is, yes, but even
But if it hadn't been,
were
it would still be
not,
commercial, okay.
That's if you want to use their definition.
so their definition being,
Uniform code.
the residential code of New York?
Yep.
I think we should,
I'd have that stated in the beginning of it.
yeah.
Form the residential code, you want the definitions, the word for word definitions, I'll get them for you.
So I think the larger than 25 megawatts is governed by the state, and it's not in front of this,
Right.
any of us at all. So I think,
It comes here, but it starts with the state.
I think it has then, there's this gap area to cover, which is, I think, we maybe had that last section between 1 and 25 or 24.99. Less than 25, but greater than 1 megawatt, not kilowatt, but, megawatt. That fell into this tier where we would have a community meeting. And,
But again, we're talking
yes, you
about
always have a public hearing, though.
capacity.
That seems
as
even
opposed to
redundant.
size, Right?
Well, so that's the thing, for these larger ones, they give you options, it was like, oh, is it acreage? That just seems, or is it nameplate capacity?
For those ones, we did nameplate capacity, for like those larger ones. Yeah.
Trouble getting my head around.
Now, the other thing, just so you guys, that I disagreed with Mike and Lisa on, and I don't know if it even is
110%?
up yet. Yes.
I was
Which is
waiting.
that's-
a limitation on the amount of energy that a person can create in their residential property. My personal feelings are, if you build something that meets the requirements on your residential property, and science allows you to make 200% or 300% or any percent of power, I think that's fine. I don't care.
I think that,
On your single-family residential with your solar panels, that you are allowed, after we do all the things that we're gonna do here, I think it's fine. I don't think we should need to limit it.
I think
If they
that,
wanna limit it to 210.
I think the question is, do we want to encourage people to put solar panels on their house? And Tony has comments on this too, I'm sure, right? There's this concept of generating the electricity right at your house and forming this microgrid, right? You're not relying on the main grid from NYSEG. If everybody had little solar panels on their houses,
We would be significantly less susceptible to power outages and things like that. So is that what we want to encourage, or do we want to encourage people to?
put tons of panels everywhere and generate a ton of electricity so they can make money.
But right now, you wouldn't be. It's just a future.
But you
Oh, I know
can't do
people
it for right now. You have to think about going forward. But here's the reason I think I don't want it to be just, oh, just go crazy, is, first of all, the grid that's out there that's supporting us needs to be maintained. And some of this relies on, a lot of this still relies on that grid. We do. And the more, so for whatever use you need is what we were talking about, right? So I still think we have to be mindful of the fact that we are reliant on some of these large businesses, and we want them to stay healthy. Because they provide electricity and other things to people who don't have solar panels.
Not worried about NYSEG right now.
Well, no, but you know what? I'm not either, especially except that.
I hear you're saying that with private schools, or if all the people go to private schools, then the public school system
It's
collapses.
the
I
same
understand
sort
that.
of thing, and
Same
I just,
argument.
and so I'm not opposed to making and having, be sure you have an overage, but I'm not interested in just going crazy with it, because I do think we have a responsibility to keep the grid healthy for people who are less fortunate than those of us who can afford solar panels.
All right, again, like, whatever you guys decide, I'm gonna be fine with, but I would also say that, like, we don't have to police that, so I don't wanna police it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We don't
Yeah.
have to, no, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
We don't have to police that, like, that's not important.
Well, I don't know how
If it becomes
actually.
important, then we could police it, but we don't have to police it.
As more people have more electric cars that they plug in, their need is going
Yeah,
to
yeah.
exceed. And so I don't know how that works quite.
Yeah, we're not at the 110 yet, or whatever,
No.
especially with the cloud cover in Ithaca.
Yeah, so but we keep bumping up against that.
It's been cloud cover for like weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know how the state arrived.
And that unfortunately is not in their guidance document. There are some things in there, be like, oh, that's how you came up with that. There are other things where it's like 4,000.
I would take it out, because I don't feel like we need to police it.
When you're talking to like a Halco or
Can we?
something, would they know why 110% is in there in the state?
I think the theory is that like maybe next year you might make a little less, and so it'll just kind of balance out to 100.
Oh, I see. Well, and you want to be sure you have enough.
Yeah, you go up in the, sometimes, and you go down sometimes, and you,
Or during the summer, you make a lot more and you pay
Wash.
credits, and then during the winter, when you're making less, just because of the angle of the sun and everything, and cloud cover. Yeah.
I feel like this is so low on our priority list, though, to police that.
Is that all Helco does, is solar panels?
No.
No,
They do other things, okay, because I see the trucks around all the time, and I had never, I just figured that they were like some kind of electrical company. I didn't know they were associated with the whole solar
They do all
panels.
kinds of like
Oh,
traditional
okay.
heating, like, oh, you've got a
Natural gas.
furnace in your house, sure, they'll come to work on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they do everything.
I have seen them a lot.
Our panel was sized for it to be 110% on our house. And, but we still end up having to pay an electric bill
Yeah.
because what happens in the summer, obviously in the spring, summertime, fall, with the sun and everything, is the intensity, we build up so much. Actually, we send it back to NICEAG, and then
And they take it back.
they take it back, and they buy it for less than what they actually charge for it.
Of course.
But then when we've used up all that, like in the wintertime, we have a couple, 3 months that we end up paying some for electric bills. So, and we're still sized for 110% what we would normally use.
And you pay NICEAG every month regardless anyway for like the connection,
Oh, yeah, delivery.
the delivery charge.
Yeah, so you're gonna pay NICEAG.
I asked them, because they say, you know, they deliver it to the house and they have to charge that. And I said, well, I own the line from the road to the house. Do I charge you for delivery going out to there? And then,
Yeah, then. Well, it is 8:30. I would love to,
not stay here till 9 if possible tonight.
I'll be blunt about it.
I think that we have a way forward. Mike's gonna redline this baby.
I was going to say, exactly, starting with our code officer.
And if you have, you know, if you,
Seriously.
yeah, no, and if you have other thoughts about anything that we've talked about,
Just compile them all as you,
if there's something that we didn't get, you know, there's all kinds
kinds of stuff later in the section, even if you're like, oh, I looked at the decommissioning template, and why do they capture that? Maybe that's important to us, maybe it's not. Or maybe we don't need one at all, I think we should have it. Maybe
Oh,
we
yeah,
don't need
no,
one.
you always
Or
need.
maybe we only need them for, you know, ground mounted ones that are large. If it's, you know, a residential ground mounted one, I don't care. But if you have those, compile them up and send them to Mike, and we can get them out to everybody.
can I have a couple meetings?
Yes.
Yes, it doesn't have to be the
I
next
got
one.
my 1203 and I got stormwater.
Okay.
that's fine.
Can he have a couple of meetings before he does that? I think it's
have a couple.
worth,
I'm not Mike's wife, I don't get to tell him what to do.
I think it's worth waiting for, because we really don't know. You know, it's dumb to include stuff that's
It's already in
extraneous
there.
and redundant.
Consolidate some things and
Yeah.
have you look at it, and if you think I missed something, then.
Well,
by all means,
well, we're so shy on that.
Do you want to, Lisa, do you want to kind of rewrite that statement of purpose at the beginning, or whatever you
Oh,
want to
yeah,
call it?
I'll send that to you.
Well, do you want, I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think we want
Yeah,
to
well,
copy.
I was
theirs,
gonna
but-
say,
I mean, whatever works, or.
Yeah, no, I would.
Because that's something that we can work in
I
between
would-
now and then.
I was-
I'll try to put something together and just send it out about, hey, do these look like the right tiers for some of the, knowing that the numbers could change, right? We, you know, we say less than, or more than 1, but less than 25, maybe that changes, but at least it gives you the right idea about
Do
the
you
kind of
think,
tiers.
do you think, do you remember when, with our conversations with Tony, how we were kind of getting into capacity, weren't we, as opposed to size, or not? I don't really remember.
Yeah, some of the stuff that he had in there originally was nameplate capacity.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the main decision, because those are the two ways to phrase things.
but it was, and we kept talking about the fact that technology, so he said the minute we decide on something, it's gonna.
Yeah,
it's gonna-
that's why ultimately, and when you get back to the reason we're doing this, is mostly 99% neighborhood aesthetics.
Yeah.
The size is really what's.
Well, and honestly, I think, you know, most of the time, right, if you go and put a,
Whether, you know, technology changes 10 years from now, you're still paying for your solar array 10 years from now. I have the feeling that most people put an array in, and there you go. They're not gonna be like, well, in 5 years, I'm gonna upgrade all that. No, in 5 years, you're still gonna be paying for that. And in 20 years, you're probably still gonna be paying for that, so.
Well-
I don't think, you know, yeah.
And I think that all of these, you know, they take effect the date of this, or if something is modified too,
I think it was like if you.
Yeah, I mean, so I wanted to look at some of the language of that too, but I mean, that's kind of nitpicky stuff, so.
Yeah, and I'll get ahold of Tony too,
And just see what
Chat
he
with
thinks
him.
about size versus,
Yeah.
it has to be.
Square footage.
I was looking through my old emails with Tony, and he sent us a reference to a tulip-shaped windmill.
Oh, and I remember,
If we start talking to Tony, it's gonna,
and I saw
I love
one
that
where
stuff,
he
so it's
sent us the little propellers all on the fence.
Yeah.
There were little windmills
They have,
all
they have,
on
they
the
have,
fence,
they have, in their,
generating, and some of them were just little, like flappers.
they have things that
Oh,
look
it's-
like trees like that, where
Yes.
the leaves, it makes micro generation, is it doesn't make a ton of electricity like each one, it makes it very small, but when you have a tree covered in them, they also have, it's like a wind, it's almost like a big wind funnel, like picture like a
I
like
love
a big
some of
colander,
this
and the
stuff.
wind blows through it, as opposed, they also have vertical wind turbines.
Yeah,
Or
those are
vertical access
interesting.
wind turbines, the watts, those things are neat, yeah.
Yep.
in the village, you can't. be
Yeah, well, the
35
wind,
feet.
we haven't gotten into,
Yeah.
as that one,
Well, that's the nice thing about some of those things, though, is if you have like the vertical, not like one of those huge ground mounted ones with the propellers, those vertical axis wind turbines, they can be like 8 feet tall. So if you had a building that's only 20 feet tall, you could put one on top and not exceed the overall height limit.
they're not very pretty either, though.
All right,
But they're kind of neat looking.
They're
They're
not
better than,
bad.
they're better than
Oh,
some of the big windmills.
Oh,
that
I
you see.
can't, I really don't.
Those turbines, oh, yeah.
I don't like them.
Well,
Scary,
in the south,
they're ominous.
They're doing new houses now in the south with the solar shingles.
Yeah,
I know,
those
there's
things are
all
neat,
sorts
yeah.
of interesting things, so. But that's part of the building, what is it called? The building incorporated stuff like canopies or
Oh,
shingles.
some of those things, yeah, we had
That was in here.
they made this, it's kind of this, like, it looks like, for lack of a better term, like polymer or plastic, but it was like meant to like put outside, like in like a quad at a college, we had a little sample of it, it was neat. And it provided shade, and there was a bench underneath, you could sit at it, and it had USB ports, and you could plug in, and it was all just generated from the sun hitting this plastic, that was kind of neat. So, and it was a lot cheaper than an actual solar panel.
Well, I think also some of the, in terms of some of the commercial buildings, like when we see these parking lots that
Yeah.
they've covered
Yeah,
over, it makes a lot of sense. It would be really neat.
those especially with EV cars, oh my goodness, yeah.
So, if somebody comes for that, I'm in
Yeah,
favor
yeah.
of it.
Other business? Mike, anything you want to talk about?
I really don't have anything other than the beers possibly coming back at some point.
Who's doing February
I think Pat is, Yep.
and March?
but I'll have to look,
Pat, we do not have a meeting on Monday.
I know.
yeah.
It's always my
I'm all-
favorite news, I'm all over
over
that too. So I would share the good news.
Pat knew, he's like, I'm well aware.
Who's on it?
Trustee report, there was no trustee meeting.
Actually,
There was.
Was there?
Oh, there was?
Did you go to?
Oh, yes, we have a new,
You did.
we have a new
February.
trustee.
Oh, it is, wow, I kept thinking it was like the last one in yeah, okay,
No, so there wasn't any meetings in January.
right, yeah, none in January, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Trustee, right?
We do, they appointed Drew Riedel
Riedel, I
Riedel?
think they say. Oh, I thought,
to replace Jeff through April, and then he's gonna run for a one-year term after that. They set two public hearings, one for proposed local law A 2023 and B 2023. And those hearings will be on March 6th.
what are those about?
Those ones?
A is about sewer rent.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the lighting code. Oh, replacing the lighting commission?
They approved escrow fund
Commission.
to be returned to Arrowhead Triax in the amount of $37,586 and change.
The sidewalks are done at Lansing Meadows. I was just saying, the sidewalks are done at Lansing Meadows.
Yep. They approved resolution 6921 to authorize a 2023 amended municipal cooperative agreement for the Greater Tompkins County Municipal Health Insurance Consortium.
That's an annually thing.
Yeah. Budget selection assignments were made, and they have to get information back to Jody by the 24th of this month. The mayor reported that Safe Streets for All grant application for an in-depth safety study was approved, and the village has to pay its share of $6,190. They adjourned at 8 PM.
Okay,
A short meeting.
It's a lot of items that,
anything you wanted to bring up, Larry?
No, I don't have anything.
What?
I know.
Huh?
No?
Lisa? Jim, anything you wanted to bring up?
Nothing I was gonna bring up at the camp, but for the whole time after Lisa's pictures were displayed, the camera view of the meeting room has been turned off.
Oh. Well, we probably broke something then. Yeah,
So-
okay, well, hey,
An abstract figure that represents the collective body.
What,
there's Jody right there, yeah. I don't
oh, is that
know.
Jody? Are we Jody?
Oh,
I was wondering why Jody was, I looked
Well-
at that, no kidding, in her spare time.
every time Mike touches the, oh, there we go, look at that, hey, we're back. Good news is we didn't present anything, or, other than the tulip-shaped,
Wind turbines, yeah.
Yeah, no visuals.
okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:36 PM.
I'll move.
Motion by Pat,
I'll second.
second by Jim.
I knew he'd want to.
All in favor?
Aye. Thanks, everybody, have a good one.
Thank you.
Did you
Good
stop?
Is this the first dedicated planning session that the planning board has had since the net
Oh, yeah.
days?
Yes, just about. It is.
Awesome,
Aren't you glad you were here?
yes.